Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something that's become, let's be honest, a real source of stress and confusion for so many of us: tipping.
Oh, you know that moment. You're just trying to grab a coffee and then bam, the payment screen flicks around, it's staring you down, asking for 20, 25, sometimes even 30%. It's super awkward, right? And it feels like it's happening absolutely everywhere. So let's figure out, why is this even a thing now?
Well, that feeling, it actually has a name. It's called tipflation, or you might hear tip creep. It's this idea that we're being prompted to tip in places we never used to. I mean, drive-thrus, retail stores, and on top of that, those suggested amounts just keep climbing higher and higher.
So yeah, that awkward tip screen. Let's talk about it. How in the world did we get here? What's really behind this massive shift in how we tip?
It's really a perfect storm of a few different things. First, think back to the pandemic. A lot of us started tipping more generously, right? We wanted to help out service workers. Then inflation hit, and costs went through the roof for everybody. But the real game changer? Those digital payment systems. Suddenly, these tablets are right in your face, making that tip request impossible to ignore. It's created this phenomenon people call guilt tipping, that pressure you feel when the employee is standing right there and maybe there's a line of people behind you watching what you do.
But you know, to really get why this is such a big deal, especially in the US, we have to look under the hood at something called the tipped wage system. It's unique, and it's pretty much at the core of this whole debate.
And here's the absolute key difference. In the United States, unlike almost everywhere else, employers can actually pay tipped workers a lower hourly wage than the standard minimum wage. It's a whole separate category.
So what are we talking about here? At the federal level, that wage is just $2.13 an hour. Let that sink in. $2.13. And what's wild is that number hasn't budged in decades.
This is so important to understand. In the American system, a tip isn't just a thank you for great service. It's not a bonus. For millions of people, tips are an essential, required part of their paycheck. They are literally what's supposed to make up the difference to get them to the full minimum wage. But as you can probably guess, this system is messy. It basically puts the responsibility for paying a worker's wage on you, the customer. And it doesn't always work out. I mean, look at this Department of Labor data. A report found that a huge percentage of restaurants had wage violations. That means employers weren't making up the difference when tips didn't cover it. So, this whole American system is pretty different from how things are done elsewhere. Which begs the question, how does the rest of the world handle tipping? Let's take a quick trip around the globe.
Okay, this chart really shows you what a massive outlier the US is. You look at France and service is just included in the price, it's the law. In Germany, you might round up the bill as a nice gesture, but it's not expected. Then you go to a place like Japan, where trying to leave a tip can actually be seen as confusing or even a little rude. And down in Australia, it's simple. Workers get paid a full living wage, so tips just aren't really a thing.
So you can kind of break these down into a few main types. You've got service included, where it's already in the price. You've got gesture appreciated, where a little extra is nice but totally optional. And then there's unexpected or offensive, where you just don't do it. But what's the common thread through most of these other countries? The workers are being paid a full livable wage by their boss, not by the customer.
Okay, so all of this brings us right back here to today. You have this really unique American system crashing head-on with all these new pressures, and it's sparking a huge debate.
And what's the result of all this? A serious case of tipping fatigue. People are just tired of it. Look at this data from Bankrate. Almost 2/3 of Americans now have a negative view of tipping. They're just feeling stressed and confused about the whole thing.
And you see this fatigue pop up in these little debates we all have, right? Like, should you tip on the subtotal before tax or on the final total? I mean, the logic for tipping on the subtotal makes sense. The tax goes to the government, not the server. But here's the tricky part. A lot of servers have to tip out to other staff, like bussers or cooks, based on a percentage of their total sales, including tax. So if you tip on the subtotal, that server might actually have to pay that difference out of their own pocket. It's complicated.
You know what's also really interesting? There's a big split between generations. Younger folks, like Gen Z, are actually tipping more often. And a big reason for that is probably because more of them have actually worked in service jobs. They've been there. They know firsthand how much you have to rely on those tips to get by.
And that really gets to the human heart of this whole debate. Because while we as customers might feel this tipping fatigue, for the workers, those tips are an absolute lifeline. For them, it isn't about some polite custom. It's about paying the rent. It's about buying groceries.
And that's especially true with inflation making every single dollar count.
So where does that leave us? Well, it really feels like we're at a tipping point, no pun intended. We have a system that feels broken and frustrating for a lot of customers, but at the same time, it's something that workers absolutely depend on to survive. And that leaves us with a really big question. With all this fatigue and a system that's so different from the rest of the world, is it finally time to rethink the whole idea of tipping?